1045 The Team, your home for New York sports. Join us right now, Anish Schroff from the Mothership ESPN. He's been on the call for the UAlbany games and will be again this weekend as UAlbany gets the rematch against Yale. Anish, last week you said that was the toughest weekend. That's the bad matchup. Do you think UAlbany can get past Yale? Do they have the talent they need?
Well, they have the talent. They just have to play better than they did back in April. That was sort of a perfect storm of disaster for Albany. They struggled at the face-off X. They could not handle Yale's ride. Bulldogs looked bigger, faster, meaner, stronger. Yale fed off the home crowd, and that game was over. And obviously, when Connor Fields goes down in the first half and doesn't come back, I think that sucked the mojo out of Albany. Fields has now figured out how to play in a diminished form, and I don't mean that as a negative. He's not 100%. He's not close to it. You could see that in the first two games. But what he has shown is the ability to now figure out how to still maximize his abilities given some of the shortcomings that he has right now physically. He had 3 assists. So, and I think Albany's learned to play with this version of Connor Fields.
That win against Denver, finally getting over the hump, finally getting to the Final Four. What was the biggest momentum shift almost in that game for the Great Danes to pull off the victory?
It was T.D. Erlin. I think going into the game, I thought if Albany could win 40% of the faceoffs, I thought they had a great chance to win. In hindsight, had they won 40% of the faceoffs, they probably don't win the game. And, Tristan David Erlin, he didn't have to beat Goliath. He just couldn't lose to Goliath. And he went 15 out of 30 to play Baptiste at a standstill when Erlin, the one knock on him has been in some big spots, he's come up a little short. I thought his performance was Herculean. To do what he did, to go toe-to-toe with Baptiste, the amount of momentum that gave Albany and the amount of goals that Albany scored off of face-offs won, that was the difference. Denver's not a quick strike offense. They'll win the face-offs. I think Denver might have gotten a couple off of face-off wins. Albany had 4 or 5 goals directly from a face-off that Erlin won. That was the difference in the game. Those juice goals made all the difference. And, don't sleep on what happened early. You remember the game against Maryland last year where that game was over close to when it started. Getting off to a nice little 3-0 lead against Denver, I think that gave this team a lot of confidence. But to me, T.D. Erlin was the guy.
Anish Schroff joins us right now, ESPN. The Final Four matchup coming up in Foxborough this weekend. And Anish, Levac and I have been going back and forth about what this victory meant for the Great Danes and overall the 2018 season. Despite whatever the result may be this upcoming weekend, do we deem this season a success for the Great Dane program?
Oh, 100%. Getting to championship weekend when you've never been there, that stamps the program. This is now a bookmark in the program's history. This team is going to be remembered forever. They'll have reunions. They'll celebrate these guys. You get the championship weekend, it becomes a physical benchmark of a program's success, a defining moment in that program. I'll say this. Of the 4 teams left, if the pressure is off Albany and if they play fast and loose, it's the last team that you want to see play fast and loose. I thought there would be significant pressure on Albany in the quarterfinals, and you can say the same for Yale and for the Duke seniors. The fact that Albany has now gotten a championship weekend, for all intents and purposes, the weight is off their shoulders. And if that crew, the one that you guys see all the time, that plays fast and loose and carefree, they become exponentially more dangerous.
Anish Schroff with us right now, 1045 The Team. And you talked about the size and the strength of Yale. Does that mean that a guy like the freshman Nanticoke has to come out and have a big game because of his size?
Well, he didn't play well in the first meeting. When Fields got hurt, they put the other freshman, Chris Fake, Yale's best defender, one of the best defenders in the country, and Fake's only a freshman. And Fake shut out Nanticoke, who was, I believe, 0 for 9 shooting in that game. Tahoga's got to play better. I think Tahoga's adjusted to now having to be more of the guy on offense. Yale caught Albany in that period where it was still Connor Fields' team. And I think it still is Connor's team. But over the last 4 or 5 games, DeHoga's had to become, the alpha offensively. He's had to do more. And I think initially he struggled in that role. He's been a lot better in that role. There were times where he single-handedly overpowered Denver. I think you'll see a better game from him. But certainly he is the guy that you highlight when you say who on Albany can stand up to the physicality of Yale.
And Yale and that team overall across the board, for this team, it's almost, in some ways, been a surprise. An Ivy League team getting to the Final Four and being so good. What continues to make Yale maybe a perennial power in the lacrosse world for the next few years?
Again, this has been building, right? They've been the most consistent winner in the Ivy this decade. Only thing that was really missing was they didn't have the NCAA tournament success prior to this year. They only had one NCAA tournament win. They were bounced in the first round 3 times for whatever reason. They've been building toward this. This is a talented team. They have 6 MLL draft picks, more than anybody else. They've got an all-time player in Ben Reed. Jackson Morrill, a sophomore, is a star in the waiting. Matt Gaudette, one of the best finishers in the country. Incredible midfield depth. Incredible defensive midfield led by an All-American in Tyler Warner. The close defense. You've got the Ivy League Freshman of the Year in Fake and then 2 MLL draft picks. The only weakness that I see is the goalie, Jack Starr. Which version of Starr shows up? He played well against Loyola. He struggled against UMass. He played well in the Ivy League semis against Penn. He struggled in the Ivy League championship against Cornell. Goaltending has been the Achilles heel of this program in the tournament, and I think it's the one question mark for Yale heading into championship weekend. If Jack Starr can be average and slightly above average, Yale probably wins the whole thing. I think he holds the key because they have everything else. They're the deepest, I wouldn't say the deepest team, but they've got enough depth, they've got enough talent, they've got enough stars. Can they get the requisite goaltending you need to win a championship?
Anish Schroff with us right now, 104.5 The Team. Anish, locally, we love Scotty Marr. His reverence of the Native American culture and how that comes into lacrosse and the way he lets these guys play their own style within his system. Is it at all shocking nationally that a guy who is like this, who's growing out the hair and doing all this stuff, is successful as he is?
I don't know if it's shocking nationally. Albany has been building toward this, much like Yale. They've been to the quarters 3 of the previous 4 seasons. They've had really good talent. I would say this, he's probably one of the few coaches in the country to embrace concepts that aren't mainstream. And what I mean by that, I think I've told you guys before, a lot of coaches will say to myself and Quint and Kark privately, you can have 1 or 2 Native Americans on a team. You can't have a team full of them. And then you say, well, why not? And the first thing they say, well, it's not because they can't play. And so, you just start thinking, well, okay, wouldn't you want the most talented kids on your team? And they get into culture. Well, you don't want them overrunning the culture of your locker room. And I don't know, again, a person of color who covers lacrosse, that's a little off-putting to hear sometimes.
Right.
Like, well, why can't you bring them into your culture? Why can't you embrace their culture? Why can't you make this work? Well, Scotty has kind of spit on that logic and said, no, I'll make it work, and he has made it work. And listen, if Ty Thompson's shot doesn't hit Notre Dame's goalie in the helmet, Albany gets to a Final Four. If T.D. Irwin played with Lyle Thompson and Miles and Ty, Albany might have a championship or 2 right now. He's been successful in a way that a lot of coaches, quite frankly, don't want to be successful. He has embraced that culture, and I think he has really embodied the spirit of what lacrosse should be. And, you hear, some of these kids talking about, well, I went to this camp and I went to this camp, and then it's, Lyle Thompson talking about what it was like playing pickup games on the reservation. Or, there's a great story I read about DeHoga this week where he talks about playing in his driveway with his brother who was 10 years older, and his brother would fire lacrosse balls at DeHoga's head, and essentially Nanticoke had 3 options. 1, he could duck, and the ball would hit the garage, and his mom would yell at him. 2, he could get hit in the head, or 3, he could catch the ball, and he had to learn how to catch the ball, and that's what made his stick skills so much better. There's sort of a Willie Mays playing stickball in the street aspect to these kids. a really blue-collar nature, a spirit of the earth nature, a creator spirit. It's something that the rest of the lacrosse world doesn't really embrace from time to time, and I think to have Albany shoved down their throats this week and have Albany shoved down the throats of the lacrosse world, I think it's great. I think people need to see it. They play it differently. They have a coach who does things differently. They have embraced this, and now the rest of the world should, and if you can't embrace it, at least appreciate it.
That's the kind of insight you only get from a man who lives the game of lacrosse like Anish does. We appreciate you, man, and with any luck, we're bugging you again next weekend. Or no, I'm sorry, Monday, right?
No, maybe we'll be done.
Monday?
He'll be on the broadcast. This is it. Anish, we're done, okay? This is the last time.
We don't want to keep bugging him?
He's working on Monday afternoon. Anish, we'll talk again soon, my friend. Take care.
Guys, take care.